everyone. This is Maya. Welcome to Outside the Drama, a podcast where we keep it real and cut the drama. No psychologist mumbo jumbo. Seriously. As always, coffee's ready, so let's dive into today's topic. And today, my dear listeners, a topic that often gets very controversial in conversations, especially among men, and tends to trigger some, not always positive emotions. And I get that frustration. I really do. But I think it often comes down to the fact that a lot of men don't fully understand what this is actually about. And that's when you hear things like, I was so good to her, and she still chose a guy who wasn't better than me. In fact, he acted like a total jerk sometimes. Feeling the vibe already? So, does that mean women really prefer bad boys? Is it just a myth, or is there something deeper behind it? And what to do if you feel like being nice just doesn't work? Today we're diving into this. No fluff, no coach talk cliches, no made-up philosophies. We're speaking from real-life experience and plain human observation. Okay, let's go. You need to know one thing. A bad guy is a challenge, and challenges are sexy. Trust me on that. Let's start with what I hear most often from women when I ask why they're attracted to guys who aren't easy to get. It's not about liking to be treated badly, nor is it about chasing drama or emotional roller coasters. It's something else. The challenge. When a guy is too predictable, too available, too quick to say yes, a woman feels like she doesn't even have to try. I spoke about this in the last episode, just by the way. And we humans are wired like that. We value things more when they're not handed to us on a silver platter. It works both ways. Men also like women who have their own opinion, who aren't always on call, who have their own separate lives. A man who's not afraid to say no, who doesn't agree to everything, who can stand his ground, is just more interesting. It's not about being rude, okay? It's about having personal boundaries and not being afraid to show them. When a woman sees that a guy can't be bought by a compliment or a cute smile, she starts to wonder, what is it about him that makes him different from the others? And that's when curiosity shows up. And right after, emotions. Exactly, emotions, not logic. Which explains why nice doesn't always mean attractive. What often ruins it for the nice guys is the belief that if I'm just nice, polite, always helpful, she'll appreciate that and fall in love. A classic. Sadly, that's not how it works. Women, just like men, are looking for emotion in a relationship. It's not that you need to be unpredictable like a cat who doesn't even know what it wants. Okay, weird analogy. Not sure why I use that. But if being around you doesn't spark any emotion, neither good nor bad, then sorry, you're just forgettable. A guy who always agrees, never has an opinion, never stands up for himself, creates nothing. He's safe, but also boring. And the bad guy, he can surprise her, joke a little, say something bold, disagree, just be fully engaged. Suddenly, the convo with him isn't some scripted chat. It's real. It's dynamic. It's not about being unpleasant. It's about being authentic, about not being afraid to show your personality, your sense of humor, values. Because authenticity and confidence, that stuff works. What women value most in so-called bad boys isn't arrogance. It's authenticity, a guy who's not afraid to be himself. Who doesn't fake a personality? Who doesn't try too hard to please? You know what's most attractive? When someone's consistent, says what they think, does what they say, doesn't backpedal under pressure. Women can sense fakeness from a mile away. If you try to be perfect, say yes to everything, pretend you have no flaws, eventually it shows. And then comes the disappointment. But a man who can say, I disagree with you, but I respect your opinion. is way more attractive than the guy who just nods along to everything. Confidence isn't arrogance. It's knowing your worth. It's being able to set boundaries. It's saying no without guilt. Now let's go further. Uniqueness and choice. A woman doesn't want to be a backup plan. She wants to be chosen, not accepted by default. What often ruins it for nice guys is the mindset, if I'm nice enough, she'll choose me. But the truth is, a woman wants to feel special. She wants to know the man has options and he's with her because he chose her, not because there was nobody else. A guy with his own life, hobbies, goals, friends is way more attractive than someone who clings to her from day one and makes her the center of his world. A woman wants to feel picked out of the crowd, not just accepted because she was there. She wants to know the man could be with someone else, but he chose her. And again, it's not about playing games, pretending you have 10 other girls on hold. It's about having a full life and not giving it all up just because a new woman showed up. Now, here's something very important. I often hear people say, women are into jerks. And now I might surprise you, they're not. The fact that women are drawn to bad boys doesn't mean they like jerks, douchebags, or men who disrespect others. A truly attractive man is someone who lives by his own values, respects himself and others, can be gentle, but doesn't let people walk all over him. Let's make one thing clear. It's not the guy who insults her, mocks her, or puts her down. Okay? It's the guy who knows what he wants, who can fight for it, but who's also capable of walking away if he sees the other person doesn't respect his boundaries. Women don't seek drama. They seek a man who is firm, but also caring. A leader, not a tyrant. Someone independent, yet engaged. Why nice doesn't work. A few psychological facts. Yeah, I know. We said no psychology talk, but I just want to give you a couple of facts so you understand this better. The nice guy is often not nice out of authenticity, but out of fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of being alone, fear of conflict. This guy says yes to everything because he's afraid. If I say no, she'll leave. He doesn't set boundaries because he's afraid of being alone. He doesn't say what he really thinks because he's afraid of being judged. And women feel that. They feel that behind that love is not strength, but fear. And we humans, we're wired to look for partners who are strong, stable, confident. That doesn't mean you have to be cold, distant, or shut off emotionally. It means being real, honest, open about what you want, what you don't want, what works for you, and what doesn't. Okay? I hope that makes sense now. So, how to be attractive without being a jerk? Okay, Maya, all this is great, but what now? How do I actually be attractive without faking it? How do I avoid falling into the nice guy trap without turning into an asshole? Here are a few tips from life, real lived experience. Have your own life. Don't give up your passions, friends, or goals just because a woman came into the picture. And if you don't have any of those things, well, time to reorganize your life and figure out what's not working. Seriously, it matters. Set boundaries. Don't be afraid to say no when something doesn't sit right with you. Be authentic. Don't fake liking something you actually don't. Don't nod along to win her over. Have your own opinion. Even if you disagree, it doesn't mean you're going to fight. It's an opportunity for honest conversation. Don't be afraid of emotions, but don't let them control you. Feelings are for you, not to be thrown at others. If you're angry because she ran late, don't make a show of how upset you are. That's not how it works. Be curious about the world and the people in it. Ask questions, listen, but don't turn into a therapist on the first date. Don't play games. If something's not working, say it. If you want to see her, ask. If you don't, say that too. And finally, is a bad boy really a bad guy? Ah, the big question. How many times have you heard that a bad boy is automatically a bad person? But in reality, in most cases, he's just a guy who won't let people walk all over him. It doesn't mean he's rude. It doesn't mean he insults or belittles others. It means he's not afraid to say no, not afraid to have his own opinion, not afraid to stand his ground, even if someone doesn't like it. Such a guy won't grovel, won't play the victim, and won't agree to everything just to be liked. He knows his worth, and he's not hiding it. And you know what? That's crazy attractive. Because these days, when everyone's trying to be nice, soft, and agreeable, a guy like that, he's a breath of fresh air. You don't have to guess what he's thinking. You don't have to decode his silences. He'll just tell you, sure. Sometimes, maybe a little too direct. Sometimes he'll say something not everyone likes. But at least you know where you stand. You don't have to guess if he's playing games, or pretending, or manipulating. He's just himself, and that is his biggest asset. So, before you label someone as bad, ask yourself, is he really bad, or is he just not afraid to be real? Because just because someone doesn't follow your lead doesn't mean they're a bad person. It means they have a spine, they have values, and they're not afraid to defend them. And that is why people like that attract others. Because they're real, uncopyable, unmanipulable. And that, these days, that's a rare thing. Of course, I know I haven't covered everything today. I didn't touch on guys who truly are nasty, manipulative, disrespectful jerks. I might record an episode just for that. Actually, let me know in the comments. Would you want that? Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for being here with me. Drop a comment. What do you think about guys like this? Maybe you're on Team Nice? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next ones. It really means a lot to me and keeps me motivated to keep going. This was Outside the Drama. I'm Maya. Talk to you soon.